Darkness was my world, a suffocating void that swallowed everything until he came. His voice, warm like a summer night, broke through the silence of my blindness, promising I wasn't alone. Then, just as my sight returned, he was gone, leaving only questions and a heart I didn't know could break. My name is Eli Carter, and I was 22 when the accident took my vision. A car crash on a rain-slicked road in Portland, Oregon, left me with a fractured skull and a world plunged into black. The doctors called it cortical blindness temporary. They hoped, but no promises. I moved back to my hometown, a sleepy place called Willow Creek, to live with my older sister, Mara. She was kind, but her life was full: 2 kids, a husband, a job. I was a guest in her house, a burden I couldn't shake. The days blurred into one long, lonely night. Then I met him. His name was Sam, or so he said. He was a volunteer at the community center where Mara dragged me for socialization. I hated it at first, the pity in people's voices, the way they spoke louder, as if blindness made me deaf. But Sam was different. His voice was steady, low, with a faint southern drawl that felt like a warm blanket. Eli, right? I'm Sam. Mind if I sit? That was how it started. Simple as that. On a Tuesday afternoon in a room smelling of cheap coffee and old books. Sam was 24. He told me, a drifter who'd landed in Willow Creek after some trouble down south. He never elaborated, and I didn't push. He read to me poetry, mostly Frost and Whitman, his voice wrapping around the words like they were his own. He described the world I couldn't see, the way the leaves turned gold in October, the curve of the river outside town, the freckles on a stranger's face at the diner. His words painted pictures so vivid I could almost see again. I lived for those moments, for his laugh, for the brush of his hand when he guided me through a doorway. We spent weeks together, then months. He'd walk me home, his arm steady under mine, and we'd talk about everything me dreams of being a writer. His love for old jazz records, the way the world felt too big sometimes. I fell for him, hard, though I never said it. I didn't know if he was gay, or if he even saw me that way. Blindness hid his face from me, but it also hid my fear. I couldn't see his eyes, couldn't read rejection in them. All I had was his voice, and it was enough. One night, after he read me a poem about love lost at sea, I asked, "Why do you spend so much time with me, Sam? You could be anywhere." There was a long pause, the kind that made my stomach twist. Then he said, "Because you see me, Eli, even without your eyes." His words hit me like a wave, and I wanted to reach for him, to hold him, but I didn't. I was too scared of breaking whatever we had. Then came the day my world changed again. A specialist in Seattle, a surgery, a chance. Mara drove me to the hospital, her voice tight with hope. Sam didn't come. He had to leave town for a bit, Mara said, but her tone was off, like she was hiding something. The surgery worked. Light flooded back into my life colors, shapes, faces. I saw Mara's tired smile, my nephew's gap-toothed grin, the green hills outside my window. But Sam was gone. No note, no number, no trace. It was like he'd never existed. I asked around town, desperate. The community center had no record of a volunteer named Sam. No one remembered him. Not the way I did. Mara swore she'd seen him, but her stories didn't add up. Different hair color, different height. Doubt crept in. Had I imagined him? Was he some figment of my lonely mind? But his voice, his touch, they were too real. I had to find him, to know if what we had was true, or if I'd loved a ghost. I started searching, piecing together the fragments he'd left behind. A mention of a jazz club in New Orleans. A story about a childhood dog named Blue. A scar he said ran across his left palm. I scoured social media, called every jazz club I could find. Even hired a private investigator with the little money I'd saved. Nothing. Months passed, and the hope I clung to began to fray. But I couldn't let go. Sam had saved me when I was lost in the dark. I owed him the truth. One evening, as I sat in my room staring at a blank page, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Eli. It's me. Meet me at the river tomorrow night. My heart stopped. The words were simple, but they carried his voice. That same warm drawl I'd memorized. I didn't sleep that night, torn between joy and fear. Was it really him? Or was this some cruel trick? I had my sight now, but I'd never felt more blind. The river was where we'd spent our last night together before the surgery. Sitting on the bank, listening to the water. He'd told me about his mother, how she'd sung him to sleep as a kid. I told him I was scared of the surgery, of seeing again, of losing him. He'd squeezed my hand and said, "I'm not going anywhere." But he had. And now, maybe, he was back. I drove to the river the next night, my hands shaking on the wheel. The moon hung low, casting silver across the water. I stepped out, scanning the shadows. A figure stood by the bank, tall and lean, his back to me. My breath caught. "Sam." I called, my voice breaking. He turned, and for the first time, I saw his face. His face was sharper than I'd imagined. All angles and shadows under the moonlight. His eyes, piercing blue, locked onto mine, and for a moment, couldn't breathe. This was SAYMA, was it? The man before me felt familiar, yet something was off, like a song played in the wrong key. "Eli," he said, his voice low, carrying that same southern lilt I'd clung to for months. But it was rougher now, edged with something I couldn't place: guilt, maybe, or fear. He stepped closer, and I saw the scar on his left palm. Faint but unmistakable, just as he'd described. My heart surged, but doubt gnawed at me. I'd never seen him before. What if this wasn't him? "You're back," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Where did you go? Why did you leave?" The questions spilled out, raw and desperate. He looked away, toward the river, his jaw tight. "It's complicated, Eli. I didn't want to leave. I had to. I wanted to believe him, to fall into the comfort of his voice like I had when I was blind. But seeing him now, I noticed things I couldn't before: the way his hands fidgeted, the way his eyes darted, avoiding mine. I stepped closer, searching his face for the Sam I'd built in my mind. "You didn't even say goodbye," I said. "I woke up. I could see. And you were gone. Do you know what that did to me?" His expression softened, and for a moment, I saw the man who'd read me poetry, who'd made me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how. I'm sorry, he said. I never meant to hurt you. I cared about you, Eli, more than I should have. The words hit me like a punch, stirring the feelings I'd buried. But they also raised more questions. Why shouldn't he have cared? He told me to meet him at the diner in town the next day. I'll explain everything, he promised. Just give me a chance. I nodded, but as he walked away, disappearing into the shadows, I felt a chill. Something wasn't right. I drove home, my mind racing. Mara was waiting, her face pale. You saw him? She asked, her voice tight. I nodded, and she hesitated. Eli, be careful. I don't know who he is, but he's not what he seems. Her words stayed with me all night. Mara had met Sam a few times, but she'd never described him the way I remembered. She'd said he had blonde hair, green eyes, nothing like the man I'd just seen. Was she mistaken? Or was I? The next morning, I went to the diner, a small place called Rosie's with chipped mugs and a jukebox that hadn't worked in years. He was there, sitting in a corner booth, his hands wrapped around a coffee cup. I slid in across from him, my heart pounding. Start talking, I said. He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. His name was Sam. He insisted, but his last name Hayes was new to me. He said he'd grown up in Louisiana, raised by a single mom who died when he was 18. He'd drifted after that, picking up odd jobs, never staying long. Willow Creek was supposed to be a fresh start, until he met me. You changed everything, he said, his voice soft. I wasn't supposed to get close, but I couldn't help it. I leaned forward, desperate for answers. Then why leave? If you cared, why disappear? His eyes flickered with something regret. Maybe, and he said, I was running from something. Someone. I thought if I stayed, I put you in danger. My stomach dropped. Danger? What kind of danger? He shook his head. Not here. Not now. Meet me tonight. At the old mill. I'll tell you everything. I wanted to press him, but the look in his eyes stopped me. He paid for the coffee and left. His shoulders hunched like he carried a weight I couldn't see. I sat there, staring at the empty booth, my mind a tangle of hope and fear. Was he telling the truth? Or was this some kind of game? I went home and dug through my things, looking for anything he'd left behind. I found a book of poetry he'd given me, Whitman's Leaves of Grass. Inside was a folded note I'd never noticed, written in neat, slanted handwriting, for Eli, who sees what matters. My chest tightened. It was him. It had to be. That night, I drove to the old mill, a crumbling relic on the edge of town. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Sam was there, leaning against a rusted beam, his face half lit by the moon. You came, he said, sounding relieved. I nodded, my throat tight. Tell me the truth, Sam. Who are you? He took a deep breath, and the story poured out. His real name was Samuel Hayes, and he'd been running from a past he couldn't escape. He'd been involved with a man in New Orleans, someone dangerous, someone tied to things he wouldn't name. When he came to Willow Creek, he thought he'd left it behind. Then he met me, and everything changed. I fell for you, he said, his voice breaking. But I knew if I stayed, they'd find me. And you? My heart raced. Who's they? What did you do? He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. I didn't do anything, Eli. I loved the wrong person. Before I could respond, headlights flashed in the distance. Sam froze, his face pale. You need to go, he whispered. Now. I grabbed his arm. I'm not leaving you. But the headlights were closer, and I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. He pushed me toward my car. Please, Eli. Trust me. I hesitated, then ran, my heart pounding as I drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw two figures approach him, their silhouettes dark against the headlights. I wanted to turn back, but his words echoed in my head. Trust me. I barely slept that night, replaying the scene at the mill. Sam's fear, the headlights, the shadowy figure felt like a nightmare I couldn't shake. By morning, I was a wreck, torn between chasing him and fearing what I'd find. I called the private investigator I'd hired months ago, a gruff man named Tom who worked out of Portland. I told him everything: Sam's reappearance, his story, the men at the mill. Sounds like trouble, Tom said. Give me a few days. I'll dig into Samuel Hayes, Louisiana, anything tied to New Orleans. I thanked him, but waiting felt like torture. I needed answers now. I drove back to the mill, hoping for clues. The place was empty. The ground churned with tire tracks. I found a cigarette butt, half buried in the dirt, but nothing else. My mind raced. Who was after Sam? And why had he come back? Only to push me away again. I remembered his voice, the way it softened when he said he'd fallen for me. It was really new, it was, but the truth was slipping through my fingers. Mara noticed my distraction at breakfast. Eli, you're scaring me, she said, setting down her coffee. What's going on with this guy? I told her about the mill, about Sam's past. Her face hardened. You don't even know if he's telling the truth. What if he's dangerous? I shook my head. He's not. I know. But her words planted a seed of doubt. I'd been blind when I met him, literally and maybe figuratively. What if I'd missed something? I spent the day searching online, typing Samuel Hayes New Orleans into every database I could access. I found nothing, no social media, no records, no trace. It was like he was a ghost, just like before. But then I remembered the jazz club he'd mentioned, a place called the Blue Note. I called them, my hands shaking. The bartender remembered a Sam Hayes, a regular a few years back, always with a guy named Marcus. Bad news. That one. The bartender said. Marcus ran with some rough people. Heard Sam got out. But Marcus didn't take it well. Marcus. The name hit me like a brick. Was he the wrong person Sam had loved? The one he was running from? I needed to know more. But the bartender had nothing else. I hung up, my mind spinning. That evening, Tom called. Found something, he said. Samuel Hayes, 24. Born in Baton Rouge. No criminal record. But he was linked to a Marcus Delgado in New Orleans. Delgado's got ties to a local syndicate, drugs, money laundering, you name it. Sam was questioned in a case 2 years ago but never charged. Then he dropped off the map. My stomach churned. Sam hadn't lied. Not entirely. But he'd left out so much. I thought of his voice, his touch, the way he'd made me feel alive. Was it all a lie? I couldn't believe that. I went back to the diner, hoping he'd show up again. But the booth was empty. Rosie, the owner, saw me staring. "Looking for your friend?" she asked. I nodded. "He was here this morning. Left this for you." She handed me a napkin with a scrawled note. "Stay away, Eli. For your safety." I crumpled the napkin, anger flaring. He didn't get to decide that for me. I loved him, and I wasn't letting him disappear again. I drove to the community center, the place where we'd met. The coordinator, a kind woman named Janet, remembered Sam. Quiet guy, kept to himself. She said, "He stopped coming after you left for surgery. Said he had to move on." I asked if she had any records, but she shook her head. "He was just a volunteer. Didn't leave much." That night, I sat with the poetry book he'd given me, tracing the words of his note. For Eli, who sees what matters. I wanted to believe I still did. My phone buzzed a text from Tom. Found a lead. Delgado's crew was spotted in Portland last week. They're looking for someone. Might be your guy. My blood ran cold. Sam was in danger, and I was the only one who cared enough to find him. I drove to Portland the next morning, my heart pounding. Tom met me at a coffee shop, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were grainy shots of a man who looked like Sam, talking to a taller figure in a dark jacket. "That's Delgado," Tom said. "Taken 3 days ago. Outside a warehouse. Sam's in deep. Eli, you sure you want to chase this?" I nodded, though fear gripped me. I had to know the truth, even if it broke me. I spent the day following leads Tom gave me: bars, motels, anywhere Sam might be. By night, I was exhausted, but I couldn't stop. I ended up at a dive bar on the edge of the city, a place Tom said Delgado's crew frequented. I sat in a corner, watching, waiting. Then I saw him, Sam, slipping through the back door, his face pale and drawn. I stood, ready to call out, but someone grabbed my arm. A man, broad-shouldered, with cold eyes. "You're Eli, aren't you?" he said, his voice low. "Sam's been talking about you." My heart stopped as the man's grip tightened on my arm. His eyes were like steel, cold and unyielding, and I knew instantly he was tied to Marcus Delgado. "Let's talk outside," he said, his voice a low growl. I yanked my arm free, adrenaline surging, and bolted for the door where I'd seen Sam disappear. The alley behind the bar was dark, reeking of garbage and stale beer. Sam was there, pressed against the wall, his breath ragged. "Eli, what the hell are you doing here?" he hissed, his eyes wide with panic. Before I could answer, the man from the bar stepped out, blocking the alley's exit. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Sam," he said, cracking his knuckles. Sam grabbed my hand, pulling me behind him. "Leave him out of this, Vince," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. Vince laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You don't get to make demands anymore. Marcus wants you back, and he's not asking." I realized then that Sam wasn't just running from a bad breakup, was running for his life. We backed away. Sam's hand tight around mine. "Run when I tell you," he whispered. I nodded, my heart pounding. Vince lunged, and Sam shoved me toward a gap between the buildings. "Go," he shouted. I ran, my lungs burning, glancing back to see Sam dodge a punch and sprint after me. We wove through alleys, footsteps pounding behind us, until we ducked into an abandoned lot, hiding behind a rusted dumpster. Sam's breath was heavy, his face slick with sweat. "Why didn't you stay away?" he asked, his voice breaking. "I told you it was dangerous." I grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to look at me. "Because I love you, Sam. I'm not losing you again." His eyes softened, and for a moment, the world fell away. Then we heard shouts, Vince and another man, closing in. We ran again, slipping through a side street to a motel Sam knew. He paid cash for a room, and we locked the door, hearts still racing. In the dim light, I saw the toll this had taken on him, dark circles under his eyes, a bruise forming on his cheek. "Tell me everything," I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "No more secrets." Sam paced, his hands shaking. He'd met Marcus Delgado in New Orleans, a charming man who'd pulled him into a world of fast money and danger. Sam thought it was love, but it was control. Marcus worked for a syndicate, and Sam got too close, saw too much. When he tried to leave, Marcus threatened to kill him. Sam fled to Willow Creek, hoping to disappear. "Then I met you," he said, his voice soft. "And I wanted to stay, Eli. For the first time, I wanted to stop running." I reached for his hand, feeling the scar on his palm. "Why come back now?" I asked. He looked down, guilt in his eyes. "I heard you were asking about me. I couldn't let you get too close to Marcus's people. I came to warn you, but I also wanted to see you." My chest ached. He'd risked everything for me. We stayed up, talking, piecing together a plan. Sam wanted to go to the police, but he was scared they might not believe him. Or worse, Marcus had connections. I suggested Tom, the investigator. "He's already looking into Delgado," I said. "He can help." Sam nodded, but his eyes were distant. "If we do this, Eli, there's no going back. Marcus doesn't forgive." The next morning, we met Tom at a diner outside Portland. He listened, his face grim, as Sam laid out everything: names, places, deals he'd witnessed. Tom took notes, promising to get the information to a contact in the FBI. "Lay low," he told us. "This is bigger than you think." We went back to the motel, but I could feel Sam pulling away, like he was bracing for something. That night, he kissed me. It was sudden, desperate, his hands cupping my face like he was afraid I'd vanish. I kissed him back, pouring everything into it: months of longing, fear, hope. "I love you," he whispered against my lips. "No matter what happens, remember that." I held him close, but dread settled in my gut. He was saying goodbye, even if he didn't admit it. The next day, Tom called. The FBI was interested, but they needed Sam to testify. It was risky. Marcus's reach was long, but it was the only way to end this. Sam agreed, his jaw set. We moved to a safe house Tom arranged. A small cabin in the woods. For a few days, it was just us. Cooking meals. Talking about the future. I saw glimpses of the Sam I'd fallen for. The one who laughed easily and read poetry with passion. But then, late one night, I woke to find him gone. A note was on the pillow. I have to finish this alone. I'm sorry. I love you. Panic hit me. I called Tom, who cursed and said he'd check the safe house's perimeter. I waited, pacing, praying Sam hadn't done something reckless. Hours later, Tom called back. We've got a problem, he said. Sam's been spotted with Delgado. It doesn't look good. The words hit like a freight train. Sam. With Delgado. It didn't make sense. He'd been ready to testify. To end this. I grabbed my keys, ignoring Tom's warnings to stay put. Where is he? I demanded. Tom hesitated. Then gave me an address, a warehouse in Portland's industrial district. Don't go, Eli, he said. This is FBI territory now. But I was already out the door. The drive was a blur. My mind racing with images of Sam in danger, worse. Betraying me. I couldn't believe that. Not after everything. The warehouse loomed ahead. A hulking mass of steel and shadow. I parked a block away. My heart pounding as I crept closer. Voices echoed from inside. Sharp and angry. I recognized Sam's. Strained but defiant. I slipped through a side door, staying low. The warehouse was dimly lit. Crates stacked high. Sam stood in the center, hands raised, facing a man I knew had to be Marcus Delgado, tall, broad, with a cruel smile. Two others flanked him, one holding a gun. You think you can walk away? Marcus said, his voice smooth but venomous. You owe me, Sam. You don't get to quit. Sam's eyes were steady. I'm done. Marcus. I told you that. My chest tightened. Ed wasn't here to join them. He was confronting them. But why alone? I edged closer, hiding behind a crate, my hands shaking. Marcus laughed, stepping forward. And this kid, Eli, you think he's worth throwing your life away? Sam's jaw clenched. Leave him out of this. I wanted to run to him, to scream, but I froze. Marcus nodded to the man with the gun, who stepped closer to Sam. My heart stopped. Then, a shout, Tom's voice. From the shadows. FBI. Drop your weapons. Chaos erupted. Lights flooded the warehouse. Agents swarming in. Marcus cursed. His men scattering. But Sam didn't move. He saw me, his eyes wide with fear. Eli, get out. He yelled. I ran toward him, dodging an agent who tried to grab me. Gunshots rang out, and I ducked, my pulse roaring. Sam tackled me to the ground, shielding me as bullets flew. When the noise stopped, I looked up to see Marcus and his men in cuffs, agents barking orders. Sam's arms were still around me, his breath ragged. You idiot, he whispered. Why didn't you stay away? I clung to him, tears burning my eyes. Because I love you, I said. He pulled back, his face a mix of relief and pain. I'm sorry, he said. I thought I could protect you by ending this myself. I wanted to yell at him, to kiss him, to shake him for being so reckless. But before I could, an agent pulled him away, saying they needed his statement. The next hours were a haze. Sam gave his testimony, detailing Marcus's operations: drug trafficking, extortion, money laundering. The FBI had been building a case for years, and Sam's information was the final piece. He was a hero, they said, but he didn't look like one. He looked exhausted, haunted. When they let me see him, he was in a small room, his hands cuffed for protocol. I sat across from him, my heart breaking. "Why didn't you tell me you were going to face him?" I asked. He looked down. "I didn't want you to get hurt. If Marcus knew how much you meant to me, he'd have used you against me." I reached for his hand, ignoring the agent's frown. "You don't get to decide that alone," I said. "We're in this together." He smiled, faint but real. "You're stubborn. You know that." I laughed, tears falling. "Takes one to know one." The agent said we had to leave. Sam would be taken to a safe location until the trial. I didn't want to let go, but he squeezed my hand. "I'll find you when this is over," he promised. Days turned into weeks. The FBI kept Sam in protective custody, and I wasn't allowed to know where. I went back to Willow Creek, trying to live normally, but every day felt empty. I wrote, pouring my feelings into stories, but they all came back to him: his voice, his laugh, the way he'd made me feel seen. Mara tried to keep me grounded, but she saw the toll it took. "He'll come back," she said one night, but I wasn't sure. Then, one morning, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single page. In Sam's handwriting, "Eli, I'm safe. Trial soon. Wait for me." My heart leapt. I clung to those words, rereading them until they blurred. But doubt lingered. What if the trial went wrong? What if Marcus's people found him? I pushed the thoughts away, focusing on his promise. The trial came, and I wasn't allowed to attend. Too risky, Tom said. I watched the news, holding my breath as reports trickled in. Marcus Delgado was convicted, sentenced to life. Sam's testimony had sealed it, but there was no word on Sam. I called Tom, desperate. "He's free," Tom said, "but he's gone dark." Said he needed to figure things out. My heart sank. Free, but gone again. I went to the river, the place where we'd first reconnected. I sat on the bank, staring at the water, wondering if I'd ever see him again. Then I heard footsteps. I turned, and there he was, real and whole, his blue eyes brighter than I remembered. Sam stood there, the river reflecting moonlight in his eyes, and for a moment, couldn't move. He looked different, older. Somehow, the weight of the trial etched into his face. But it was him, the man who'd brought light to my darkness. And I ran to him, throwing my arms around him. "Eli," he whispered, holding me tight. His voice was the same, warm and steady, but there was a tremor in it, like he'd been carrying too much for too long. "I'm sorry I left again. I had to be sure it was safe." I pulled back, searching his face. "Is it over?" I asked. He nodded, but his eyes were guarded. "Marcus is gone. His people, too. But I wasn't sure you'd still want me." The words stung, How could he think that? Sam, I've been waiting for you, I said, my voice breaking. Every day. I've been waiting. His face softened, and he cupped my cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized was there. I don't deserve you, he said, but I shook my head, pulling him close again. Don't say that. You're here. That's enough. We sat by the river, talking for hours. He told me about the trial weeks of fear, hiding in safe houses, wondering if he'd live to see the end. He'd wanted to contact me, but the FBI had been strict. No communication. No risks. I kept thinking about you, he said. Your voice, your laugh, kept me going. My heart swelled, but I saw the shadows in his eyes. He'd been through hell, and he wasn't the same Sam I'd met in Willow Creek. We went back to my place, Mara's house, quiet in the early morning. She was at work, the kids at school, and it was just us. I made coffee, and we sat at the kitchen table, the silence heavy but comforting. What now? I asked. He looked at his hands, the scar on his palm catching the light. I don't know, he admitted. I've been running so long. I don't know how to stop. I reached for his hand. Then don't. Stay here. With me. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw hope there. Fragile but real. You sure you want a mess like me? He asked, a half smile tugging at his lips. I laughed, leaning in to kiss him. I've never been more sure. The next weeks were a blur of rediscovery. Sam moved into a small apartment in town, and I helped him settle in. We spent evenings together, cooking, listening to jazz, reading poetry. Felt like before, but better. I could see him now. Every smile, every glance. But there were moments when he'd go quiet, his eyes distant, and I knew he was still haunted by his past. One night, as we lay in his bed, the world outside forgotten, he told me more. Marcus hadn't just been a lover, he'd been a manipulator, pulling Sam into a life he didn't want. I was young, stupid, Sam said, his voice low. I thought he loved me, but he just wanted control. I held him, feeling his pain, his guilt. You're not that person anymore, I said. You're free. But freedom came with a cost. Sam had nightmares, waking up in a sweat, calling out for me. I'd hold him, whispering that he was safe, but I wondered if he'd ever truly believe it. We started seeing a therapist, someone Tom recommended, who helped Sam unpack the trauma. I went too, learning how to support him, how to love him through the scars. Willow Creek became our home, in a way it hadn't been before. The townsfolk, once wary of Sam's sudden return, warmed to him. He got a job at the community center, teaching music to kids, his love for jazz shining through. I started writing again, my stories finding a new depth, inspired by him, by us. But I couldn't shake the fear that something might pull him away again. One evening, as we walked by the river, he stopped, pulling me close. I want to stay, Eli, he said. For good. But I need to know you're all in. His eyes searched mine, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. I took his hand, pressing it to my chest. I've been all in since the day you read me Whitman. I'm not going anywhere. He smiled, And we kissed, the river rushing beside us. For the first time, I felt like we could build something real, something lasting. But life, I'd learned, was never that simple. A week later, Tom called. "There's a problem," he said. "One of Marcus's guys got out on parole. He's asking about Sam." My heart sank. I looked at Sam, laughing with a kid at the community center, oblivious to the new threat. I didn't tell him. Not yet. I wanted to protect him, to give him the peace he'd fought for. But I knew we couldn't run forever. We'd have to face this. Together. I didn't tell Sam about Tom's call. Not that night. Not when he was finally smiling, teaching a kid to play Summertime on a beat-up piano. But the weight of it sat in my chest, heavy as stone. I knew I couldn't keep it from him forever. But I wanted just a little more time for us to be us. Without fear. We fell into a rhythm. Sam and I. Mornings at the diner. Evenings by the river. Nights tangled in each other's arms. He was opening up. Bit by bit. Sharing stories of his childhood, his mom's gumbo. The way fireflies lit up the Louisiana bayou. I loved those moments. When his guard was down. When I could see the man he was before Marcus. Before the running. But I saw the shadows too. The way he'd flinch at a car backfiring. The way he'd scan a room before entering. I called Tom back, keeping my voice low while Sam was at work. "Who's the guy?" I asked. Tom sighed. "Name's Rico. Low-level muscle for Marcus. But loyal. Word is, he blames Sam for the bust. He's out. And he's asking around Portland." My stomach twisted. "What do we do?" Tom was quiet for a moment. "I've got eyes on him. FBI's watching too. But you need to tell Sam. He deserves to know." I knew Tom was right. But the thought of shattering Sam's fragile peace made me sick. That night, as we cooked dinner spaghetti, his attempt at Italian night, I watched him. Humming softly, his hands steady as he chopped garlic. I couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, I pulled him close, kissing him until we forgot the food, the world, everything but us. The next day, I went to the community center, watching Sam teach. A girl, maybe 10, was struggling with a chord, and he knelt beside her, patient, guiding her fingers. My heart ached. This was the life he deserved, the one we could have. But Rico was out there, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. That evening, by the river, I told him. His face went still, the color draining. "Rico," he said, the name like poison. He was Marcus's shadow. If he's out, he won't stop. I grabbed his hand. "We'll handle it, Sam. Together. Tom's on it. The FBI too." He shook his head, pulling away. "You don't get it, Eli. These people, they don't care about you. About us. They'll hurt you to get to me." I stepped closer, refusing to let him retreat. "Then we fight. We don't run. Not anymore." His eyes searched mine, and I saw the battle inside him, fear against hope. Finally, he nodded, pulling me into a fierce hug. "Okay," he whispered. "Together." We met Tom the next day, in a coffee shop far from Willow Creek. He laid out a plan. The FBI would monitor Rico, but we needed to stay vigilant. Sam would keep a low profile. No unnecessary trips. I'd stay with him. Keep him grounded. It wasn't perfect. But it was something. Sam was quiet. His hand tight around mine under the table. I knew he was scared. But he was trying for me. For us. Days passed. Tense but uneventful. We stayed close. Sam teaching. Me writing. I started a novel. Pouring our story into it, love. Fear. Redemption. Sam read the pages. His eyes soft. You make me sound better than I am, he said one night, kissing my forehead. I laughed. You're better than you think. But the calm didn't last. One night, as we walked home from the diner, a car slowed beside us. My heart stopped. Sam tensed, his hand gripping mine. The window rolled down, and I saw a man, Rico. I knew it instantly, his eyes cold and hard. Sam, he said, his voice like gravel. You didn't think it was over, did you? Before Sam could respond, the car sped off, leaving us frozen. Sam was shaking, his breath uneven. He found me, he said, his voice hollow. I pulled him close, my own fear clawing at me. We're calling Tom, I said. Now. We went back to my place, locking the doors, and I dialed Tom. He was calm, professional, but I heard the urgency in his voice. Stay put, he said. I'm sending someone. That night, we didn't sleep. Sam sat by the window, watching the street, while I held his hand, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. By morning, Tom arrived with an FBI agent, a woman named Carter. She was blunt but kind. Rico's been flagged, she said. We're tracking him. But Sam, you need to be honest. Anything else we should know? Sam hesitated, then told her about a safe deposit box in New Orleans. Something Marcus had made him hide documents. Cash. Evidence. I didn't want to touch it, he said. But Rico might know. Carter nodded, making notes. We'll handle it. You two stay safe. We tried, but safety felt like a dream. I saw the toll it took on Sam. The way he barely ate, barely slept. I held him through it, refusing to let him break. We're going to make it, I told him. You and me. He smiled, faint but real, and kissed me. I believe you, he said. But I wondered if he really did. The days after Rico's appearance were a tightrope. Sam was a shadow of himself, jumping at every noise, his eyes scanning every stranger. I stayed close, my own fear buried under the need to keep him whole. We didn't leave the house unless we had to, and when we did, we moved like ghosts, heads down, hands linked. Tom and Agent Carter kept us updated. They'd found the safe deposit box in New Orleans, filled with ledgers tying Marcus to crimes they hadn't even known about. Rico was after it, thinking it held cash, not realizing it was evidence that could bury him too. He's desperate, Carter said over the phone. Desperate men make mistakes. We'll get him. But her words didn't ease the knot in my chest. Desperate men were dangerous. Sam tried to keep things normal, teaching his music classes. But I saw the strain. One afternoon, a kid asked him to play something happy, and he froze, his fingers hovering over the piano keys. I stepped in, suggesting a song, and he managed to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. That night, he broke down, his head in his hands. "I'm dragging you into this, Eli," he said. "You should walk away." I knelt in front of him, forcing him to look at me. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "You saved me when I was blind. Now it's my turn." He pulled me into his arms, his sobs quiet but deep, and I held him, willing him to feel my strength, my love. A week later, Carter called. They tracked Rico to a motel outside Portland. "We're moving in tonight," she said. "Stay put." Sam nodded, but I saw the resolve in his eyes. He wanted to end this, not just wait. Against my protests, he insisted on going with Carter, saying he could identify Rico's associates. I hated it, but I knew he needed to face this, to reclaim his life. I drove him to the rendezvous point, a quiet lot near the motel. Carter and her team were there, vests on, faces grim. Sam kissed me before getting out, his lips fierce against mine. "I'll be back," he promised. I watched him go, my heart in my throat, praying he was right. Hours dragged by. I sat in my car, gripping the wheel, every sound making me flinch. Finally, my phone buzzed. Carter. "We got him," she said. "Rico's in custody. Sam's safe." Relief flooded me, but I needed to see him. I drove to the motel, where lights flashed and agents milled about. Sam was there, leaning against a car, his face bruised but alive. I ran to him, and he caught me, holding me like he'd never let go. "It's over," he whispered. I nodded, tears falling, but I believed him this time. Rico was gone. Marcus's network dismantled. Sam was free, and so were we. We went back to Willow Creek, the weight of the past lifting with every mile. Mara welcomed us with hugs and coffee, her relief palpable. "You too are trouble," she said, but she was smiling. We rebuilt our life, piece by piece. Sam's nightmares faded, replaced by mornings where he'd wake me with a kiss, his eyes bright with hope. I finished my novel, dedicating it to him, for Sam, who taught me to see. It got published. A small press, but enough to make us proud. Sam started a music program at the community center, his passion lighting up the kids' faces. One evening, by the river, he pulled me close, the sunset painting the sky in gold. "I used to think I didn't deserve this," he said, his voice steady. "But you showed me I do." I smiled, my heart full. "We deserve each other," I said. He kissed me, slow and sure, and I knew we'd made it through the dark. Years later, we're still here, in Willow Creek, our home. Sam's laughter fills our house, his music a constant. I write, he teaches, and we love fiercely, unapologetically. The scars are there, his and mine, but they're part of us, proof of what we survived. I think back to when I was blind, when his voice was my world, and I realize it still is. He's my home, my light, my truth, and I'll never let him vanish again.